The book, The Great Divide, is about the world and America tomorrow, the next 25 years. Somewhat pretentious of me, but nonetheless, I'm an economist and a demographer, and I merge those two to figure out what's happening in tomorrow's world. And the world goes around because of these three things: oil, interest rates, and demographics. Oil is a game, has nothing to do with supply and demand. It has to do with politics. It has to do with the Saudis and the US trying to bankrupt Russia and Venezuela and other countries we don't like. So when oil goes from 150 down to 40 or $30 a barrel, and Russia's 50% of the Russian government revenue is oil, they are hurting really bad. So don't worry about us having enough fuel for our cars. There's plenty of oil around, and it's just a numbers game. The interest rates, they disappeared. There is no more interest rates. Interest rates basically went away. And you can get cars with no interest rate. You can put money away in the bank at 1%. You can get mortgages at 3.75. They are now doing zero down mortgages again. And in a number of the countries in the world, if you want a 30-year bond, you pay them 20 basis points for holding your money. So basically, inflation has disappeared. I think Janet Yellen made that rather clear in the news yesterday or today. There is no inflation, not going to be any. Do not relate the price of real estate in California with inflation. Those are two entirely different things, and there's no relationship at all. But the big part here is demographics, because the world is changing very dramatically in terms of demographics, both in terms of the number of people being born and also the change in the aging patterns. Almost half of the population gain in the world from 1980 to 2010, obviously I don't have the 2020 census yet, but it will be the same thing. Almost half of it is just in Canada, the US, and Mexico, which is just amazing. And Europe, which has over 300 million people, they're hardly growing at all, because they literally stopped having kids during World War II, and very obviously far more men got killed than women, so you didn't have enough couples that could get together and start having kids again. So most of the countries in Europe are really on a negative course in terms of population gain. Now, when we look out to the year 2050, well, you can't see that all the way back, but let me tell you that there are really only two countries that are going to have substantial personnel, people gain, from now to 2050. One is the United States, and the second is India. Japan, which now has 125 million people, in 30 years, we're going to drop to 100 million. They're going to lose 25 million people because they're xenophobic, they won't let anybody in, and they stopped having kids a long time ago. China, as a result of their one-child policy, which they finally they have a little problem. Now, when they look at the millennial population, they have 1.4 male for every 1 female. Now, the way economies work, you have to have 2 kids for every mom and dad. If you don't, your economies don't do very well. Not that. They fail. We here in the United States have a perfect 2-0, so we're doing very well. But most of these other countries, basically all of Europe, Korea is in terrible shape. The aging patterns are such that they are running out of people for the workforce. manufacturing is why Toyota has plants in 125 countries. They don't have enough people in Japan to even begin to produce Toyota. When we look at the age composition, almost 25%, a quarter of the entire Japanese population is over age 65. And fascinating, about 75% of the males over 65 in Japan are working because there's nobody to replace them. India's in the best shape. They're a very young country. And the United States is just where it should be. 13 is a nice number. Now, let's look at the U.S. in terms of the economy. People say, when are we going into a recession? Well, the answer is we never came out of the last one. If you take a look at historic GDP growth rates, we're back up to 3.7, but we had a pretty horrific recession, and we're nowhere near back what we've seen in years past. So my answer is I don't see a recession in the near-term future at all, which is a nice thing to think. But we have to look at how the U.S. demographics is changing. Cell phones only. 2/3 of all millennials do not have a hardline phone. 60% of Hispanics, 1/3 of baby boomers, and half of us living in the West don't have a hardline phone. I'll tell you a little side note. The Bureau of Labor Statistics computes unemployment rates by calling 370,000 hardline every month. Because they don't know how to call cell phones. Yeah, they're working diligently on it. So the unemployment rate is basically old white guys that they're calling. And but it's the new America. In the new America, and really the old America as well, the top 15 states in terms of growth have 76% population gains. That's not changing. That will continue in the future. And the 15 states, basically the wash to wash corridor, state of Washington all the way down and around, including Florida, up the East Coast, to Washington, D.C., to Maryland, Virginia. That's been going on for decades. Nobody seems to pay much attention to it. But, you know, if you're a car manufacturer, you're paying attention to it because Detroit has lost half their manufacturing jobs in the next 25 years. They're still putting out the same number of cars that their robots are doing. But states that I call the hubcap states, black states, the ones that surround Michigan, are dying. And there's nothing they can reverse it. A study came out this week, Pew Research came out and showed unfunded pension liabilities for public workers. And I gotta tell you, it's a horror story. The worst state, big state in the nation is Illinois, and all those other black states in the middle are, I don't know how they will survive, because cities can go bankrupt, counties can go bankrupt, by law states can't go bankrupt. I'm not sure what really happens in places like Michigan, and Illinois, and Wisconsin, which have an enormous unfunded pension liability and an aging workforce. It's a very scary thing. So these are the hubcap states, basically. These are the states that put President Trump into office. He promised to bring jobs back to these states. He can't, he won't. It's impossible. To a large degree, it relates to the unions. When you look at all the states that really have the real growth, they're all right-to-work states. And basically, the unions killed the entire Midwest manufacturing industries. And in my book, I have a table that will show you state by percent of employment in labor unions. And as you might suspect, Florida's and the Texas and the South Carolinas basically don't have unions. So it's a situation that has no chance of changing. It'll just keep on moving to the Gold States. Jobs, you know, same story. It's the same 15 states that have it all. We are #1 in California. No one can remotely become close to us, including Texas, by the way. We're doing much better. And we are really an amazing state in what we do. We've been gaining more than 300,000 jobs a year in starting in about 2011. It's really a remarkable thing to see that happen. In a state whose government is a little bit to the left of Lenin. So here's your econ 101. The basic jobs. In every economy in the country, 1/3 of the jobs are drivers, and the other 2/3 are support jobs. Every time you add one economic driver job, you gain 2 support jobs. So every time someone in Irvine gets a job in one of those high-rise buildings in a basic industry, whether it's finance or Toyota, you pick up 2 support jobs. The only problem is in reverse, it works as well. If you lose one basic job in the car industry, you lose 2 support jobs. And that causes economies to go into a tailspin. So we here in California are in amazing good shape in terms of our basic jobs. And McKinsey came out with a study about 2 months ago that divided the jobs into 2 categories in the future. They're either algorithmic or heuristic. I don't know why they do it, but nonetheless, algorithmic jobs are jobs that are repeat. You go to work, you do the same damn thing every day, same thing. Heuristic jobs are jobs where you have to think. And the blessing of California is that when you look at the growth of our basic industries, they're all heuristic. For the most part, their industries are producing things that didn't exist 25 years ago. And I don't have to go through that litany of Facebook and Google and all the rest of them. And in San Diego, the biotech, biomed industries, telecom, just remarkable what's going on. So tomorrow's jobs, you want to be in a business in a metropolitan area or a state that's gaining heuristic jobs. Not only is it because there are going to be more of them, but they also pay twice as much as algorithmic jobs. And that makes for a very thriving economy. Orange County here is a perfect poster child for heuristic jobs and high incomes and great growth. The county didn't really suffer during the recession, very, very little. So that if you're investing, and whether you're investing in jobs or real estate for that matter, you want to be in these states. Now, let's talk about millennials, because as you've only read 400 or 500 times already, millennials drive the economy. And millennial population in the United States is moving upwards. But the vast majority of the millennials are moving to the 15 golden states. Because when they get out of high school, they split. They're from Michigan, and they're intelligent. They know it's time to move. So the millennial population is growing, and the great thing about this is it's the millennials who eventually buy a home, have a family, have kids, buy cars, travel. They just don't do it as early as they once did. We look at the age of marriage, it's gone the last 30 years, from age 22 up to age 30. So it's a different world we're living in right now. But when people say millennials don't want to own a home, don't want to get married, that's really not true. We're doing the whole thing, we're just moving it up 7 or 8 years, a little bit later. And that gives them time to work and save money. And that's what we do. We now know that 1/3 of all millennials still live with mommy and daddy, which is sort of amazing. But it does mean that they can live with mommy and daddy and put their salary in their pockets or in a savings account. So that's pretty good. So here in California, we have a new category. It's called the Henrys. High earnings, not rich yet. Southern California, actually the whole coast of California, has an amazing number of people earning really good incomes and enormous household income when they get married, because professionals tend to marry professionals. I looked down at San Diego, the median household income between Carmel Valley, where I live, and Carlsbad is $132,000. Now that's incredible. It's twice the average for the entire county. But we have this enormous number of Henrys that are coming to the fore, and it's the reason why, of course, Nordstrom has this incredible new store at UTC. They smell it, they can feel it, and then they opened the Nordstrom Rack, almost in walking distance of it, to service the UCSD crowd. So I tend to be an optimist. I will tell you, I don't really care who's president, it's irrelevant. I can show you over the years, but it's absolutely no difference. In modern history, the only president who made a difference was Carter. He screwed up. In 1979, he was told how to keep interest rates from going up. He ignored it, and we went into a 4-year recovery recession, and President Reagan got us out of that. But basically, let's do the little bomb go somewhere. Don't worry about who's president. Everything will be just fine, because the next 25 years in the U.S., millennials will inherit $40 trillion. I mean, when my kids come over for dinner, we have a food tasting. When you look at the incredible amount of money that's rolling through, you look at life insurance. My parents, actually my father was with Metropolitan Life. He was among this group. When you look, we have $20 trillion in insurance in force. My parents grew up, they didn't have pension plans. Nobody had equity, net worth. That was not an individual concept, that was a corporate concept. So all I can tell you is, the next 25 years, there's going to be an enormous amount of money that will be rolling out that will keep our economy going on a long-term basis. Doesn't mean we won't have a recession. You always have a recession. But when you look at the big picture, it's really quite good. And America is the mattress of the world. Money pours in here from overseas in an enormous amount. And that's one of the things, of course, is keeping our interest rates there. But it's also resulting in an enormous amount of money being put into real estate. And like the EB-5 program, you bring in $500,000 and you get a green card for you and your immediate family. And you can bring in as many $500,000 as you want. We're glad to see your money. And that just keeps rolling in. Just got back from Vancouver. Absolutely incredible. 43% of the Vancouver population is Asian, because they had a really cheap EB-5 program. You could get it for $250,000, still can. So they've had this incredible number of people coming in buying condominiums just to park their money. They never move in, they never rent them, they just sit. Vancouver at night, you have dozens and dozens of high-rises, pitch black. And that's, so the money's there. So I think you'll be able to glean a lot of this from my book. It's not a textbook. It's fairly easy reading. And I'm really quite positive that our economy in the United States, as we look at it over the next quarter century, is going to be in an amazing role, and we'll partake in it. Thank you.
Thank you.